So episode 3 of the Bay Area Writers Forum CRC Podcast. Welcome. If this is your first time listening, welcome back. If you are a returning BARF listener. Once again, I'm Dennis, and my co-hosts are Kevin.
Wu-Tang!
And Rob, of course, our tech guy.
Hey, everybody.
So even though for the third episode, we kind of want to, well, we didn't really decide. I think Kevin has been really antsy about this topic because he just couldn't wait to talk about his favorite racer right now, and that is Cal fucking Crutchlow.
Fuck Cal Crutchlow.
All right, wait a minute. Before we actually get started here, I want to see by raise of hands, all right? Who here has actually followed Crutchlow, so to speak, before he got into MotoGP? Who's raising their hand?
Since World Superbike.
I heard he won like a race or two in World Superbike 10 years ago.
Sorry, I meant
Well, Kevin, Crutchlow was not in your radar before he went to MotoGP?
No, I follow World Superbike, so I was aware of what he was doing with Yamaha and stuff.
Wait, was he actually doing?
Well, it was like one season basically. He went from winning the title in the World Supersport, did one season in World Superbike in 2010, and then jumped straight into MotoGP from there.
Yeah, and thought 2 wins at World Superbike meant he should be a factory rider.
Well, technically 3, but he did do his first 2 wins was a double at the Silverstone weekend, which, I mean, if you ask me if there's one thing I could say about Cal and his team right now, so to speak, is they've got great timing. They know when to really strike. I mean, that was 2010 was the first year that MotoGP went back to Silverstone after running Donington Park before that many years. And I remember distinctly that, apart from winning those 2 races, Crutchlow was, basically kind of knocking in MotoGP door. He was setting like the fastest laps of the weekend that were knocking on MotoGP time. So he was kind of like, it's almost like he forced them to pay attention to him, and it was a great calling card for him. So I think they really capitalized just on that one weekend alone to get Cal into MotoGP.
I think they capitalized that James Toseland decided to suck his second year at Tech 3, and they needed a different Brit in it.
Well, yeah, Toseland was already Crutchlow's teammate in 2010, so I don't think they
That's what I'm
actually had
saying.
a British...
That's what I'm saying. They switched to Bridgestones when he went from Michelin's to Bridgestones for that second year at Tech 3, and he did awful. And then he was gone, and then they we need a Brit here because we're going back to Silverstone trying to sell tickets. We need Cal because he's the only one that's available.
So it's a genuine case of a British passport instead of the proverbial Spanish passport actually doing Cal some good. Is that pretty much what we're saying here?
That's what I'm saying.
Rob, you caught the 2010 season of World Superbike when Crutchlow was on the R1, right?
Yeah, I was thinking, was it actually still, was that the first year of Silverstone, or were they still at Donington? I'm trying to look that up.
Donington was the last year was 2009 and then 2010 for MotoGP.
Yeah, but in World Superbike, did he win at Donington or did he win at Silverstone?
No, he only had one season in World Superbike in 2010.
Yeah, okay.
So that Silverstone weekend was when he did the double. That was his first 2 wins in World Superbikes.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree that his managers did a good damn job there. Passports are really an interesting thing in GP, right? Like sometimes they hurt you, sometimes they harm you, but so much for the Brits, right? Because we've since switched to having very few that kind of all suck to now having a ton that are back in the paddock once again. So I don't know how much it's going to keep them around.
Well, Kevin.
Yeah.
Speaking of passport, since Cal went into MotoGP, would you say that his skills, so to speak, have actually carried him on, or is it still this kind of British passport that's sustaining him at this point?
I think, he does all right. He's got some podiums. He has a knack of getting outshined by Dovizioso right when it matters. And then they signed him to Ducati that after he already got that taken out from under him, even though then Gigi comes in and never really wanted him. Cal's management is really good at getting him a sweet, highly paid factory ride for 1 year, and then somehow getting him onto a prototype Honda right when they get nice big backing from British banking, which works really well when you're British.
Yeah, and that LCR, for those not in the know, Crutchlow is going to be heading over to LCR Honda. That Honda with the LCR, that's a factory spec RC213V, right?
Well, it was this year under Brattle. He had basically everything. They even allowed him to switch to Öhlins off of the Showa. I would assume that team is getting the same level of support, but I don't really know, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, they switched from Nissan to Brembo brakes as well, right? So he actually
no, they had a Nissan rear. Remember, so they could have the sticker on their bike. They had a Nissan rear brake.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, I mean, anytime you're the only guy on the bike that everyone else is running different equipment, right? You're at a severe disadvantage. So it was great that Honda let him switch, but I actually haven't read anything whether or not Cal's going to be on Nissan or Öhlins or Brembo or Showa or whatever. I kind of hope that
I'm under the impression that it was only the Gresini bikes last season that were doing the Nissan and Showa combinations.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. Again, they really wanted Brattle to do well, and they kept giving him concessions, and allowed him to switch when he came over and did a couple of things because, most of the, the satellite bikes originally both were on those, but then they let Brattle switch and all that stuff. And so I'm sure that same policy will be carrying over.
Yeah, hopefully, but then again, the Gresini squad, they're switching to Aprilia, right? Or is it Aprilia?
They already did, yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to be on Showa for sure. So the Gresini will be on Öhlins. The only one that may be on Showa next year is LCR and potentially NGM, right? Because Brattle was talking about how Showa approached them and their tech that came through.
I thought they were testing the Kayaba over at NGM Forward.
Oh, no, you're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, Kayaba was offering to pay them to run it. And Brattle was just basically like, F this noise. Meanwhile, I'm wondering why we're not talking about why it sucks that Cal doesn't have that, because then we could hear all the sweet excuses he would use when he gets beat by all the factory guys.
Well, we don't know, right? Like that's what Rob was saying is, I don't know. I'm not sure that we're even certain what packages are going to be running in LCR Honda. Are we?
No, we're not sure. We haven't heard anything about it this offseason. But we're going to find out in what, 4 days, 5 days? So we'll hear about it. But no, I kind of agree.
Since we've already segued into LCR Honda, let me ask you guys what you think as far as who would have been more who as far as that ride in LCR Honda, would you rather Brattle have kept it or Crutchlow take it?
I'll go. I actually am glad that someone else took it. Brattle had 3 seasons and had one or two podiums. Think of that podium at Laguna. He never took the next step, and he had basically a factory engine in that thing. He didn't do anything with it. It was time to put someone else on it. I personally think Cal's just a placeholder while they warm up Jack Miller for that seat. But I would rather see at this point, because we know what Brattle is going to do. He's going to get a bunch of 5th, 6th, and 7ths, crash out when he tries to keep with the leaders, and so I'd rather see a different guy do that exact same thing.
Yeah, no, I pretty much agree there. Like Cal is totally a placeholder for Jack Miller, and Brattle's not going to go anywhere. 3 years seems to be the standard for Honda, right? Like they give someone like a 2-year contract, and then if things are like kind of mediocre, they'll sign them for another year, and then after that, it's just like, well, you kind of sucked. Like in my opinion, they gave Brattle too long. After 2 years, he should have been gone. That should have been it.
I agree with that.
Well, placeholder or not, you guys. Kevin, you don't think that Crutchlow will do? Obviously, he should do much better than he did on the Ducati. But do you think Crutchlow will do any worse, or the same, or slightly better than he did on the M1 by being on the near factory spec Honda now?
No, I don't think he's going to do much better than what he did last year, honestly. I think Rossi's continuing to get better. Lorenzo's obviously going to be better than last year's debacle. I think, I agree with Rob last episode. I think Ducati's going to be better than we think, and I think Cal's going to get real frustrated finding that on that coveted factory Honda, he's still still battling for 5th, 6th, 7th, and occasionally out of the top 10.
Yeah, there's no way that he's going to do better than 2013 on the M1. Like,
nope.
He
only did that even though he wasn't the best rider. He only did that because of bad year with Rossi, warming back up, getting new things, and had some guys out of his way. I think that
I firmly believe that Crutchlow's best year on the M1 was because Andrea Dovizioso moved over to Ducati.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty much. Right, because he would have had half the podiums, if maybe even less, if Dovi was still on the M1. It's funny though, right? Because he's been chasing Dovi the whole time, and he kind of has been he's been getting interesting equipment levels the entire time. But for once, I think they made the completely wrong decision here, right? Like if he had stayed at Ducati, the Ducati next year is definitely going to be better. He would have still been on a factory bike. He would have been taking the factory paycheck, but he took a huge pay cut and went over to a satellite Honda. And we know for a fact that Honda neuters their bikes to make sure that the satellite bikes cannot challenge the Repsol bikes. I mean,
I don't think he made that decision. I actually agree with someone else on Barphone. I think that Ducati told him, you should probably look for another ride. We don't really want you. Remember, Cal was signed halfway through the year. Then they had that whole, headhunting of Gigi and got him over there. And he was like, I'm looking for Italians, bro. I need unibrows galore. And, Cal is not who they're looking for.
You don't think
I have to agree with Kevin on that one.
You don't think his brow is strong enough?
No, and I think he cuts his hair with a lawnmower too, which is weird. But no, I don't even think it was anything against Cal. I think that Ducati clearly just wanted to insulate to an Italian team with Italian test riders, Italian engineers. Gigi talked about bringing the engineers more in depth into the race team and vice versa with the mechanics. I think they were just going, full Italian, full passion style. Running of the team, and
I have to agree. I have to agree as far as Gigi Dall'Igna and Ducati are concerned, because Gigi, when he came in, he basically overhauled the whole program from the team in the grid to the factory back home in Italy, and I just can't think that he must have seen Crutchlow in the future he was trying to make for Ducati.
Well, yeah, but
Crutchlow's not a future for anyone. That's the thing. He's a brattle. He's a mid-level guy that some sponsors will like, and he'll have a ride, but there's no future in Cal. What he does there's not a future in his place holding. He's kind of like where Nicky is now. He gets money because of a passport and because of past successes, but you don't think all of a sudden no one expects him to all of a sudden be battling the fearsome foursome for podiums all the time.
When Cal's career is at the same length as Nicky's, he will be nowhere close to Nicky. Like the dude just runs his mouth too much and fucking pisses people off, and he doesn't
pluck his eyebrows enough. That's where Nicky's at, man. Woo!
But hold on. Back to the Gigi and kicking Cal out thing. Wait, so you don't think that if that first half of the season when they were headhunting Gigi, if Cal had actually worked for the team, like if he had, not run his mouth, if he had, tried, not explicitly said hey, I've given up, you don't think that he would have stuck around?
He did say that.
Yeah. You don't think he would have stuck? You don't think Gigi would have been more open to the idea of a, top 8 British rider?
Well, yeah. Look, dude. If he was stringing off podiums left and right, then sure, because you don't argue with results. But if the results aren't there, then you think, well, I want the guy that I'm close to, I can work with. I think Ducati expected Iannone to be their future and factory rider from the day they signed him from Moto2. And I think that's why he went to do a satellite Ducati when he was a guy who had beat Marquez multiple times in that season, because he was promised a future. He was going to be a factory rider, and that's why he had a factory bike, on the Pramac squad.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure Ducati kind of elbowed him, and said hey, we're going to get you the factory bike eventually. But
right.
But so what? So then Cal was the placeholder at Ducati for Iannone, and he's the placeholder at LCR for Miller now too.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Cal's just a big joke in GP. He hasn't done anything.
That's why every picture on every website is him making that face. And you know exactly what face I'm talking about. That, like, weird, confused, open mouth.
Like he doesn't belong wherever he's at. Like, what am I doing here kind of thing. Like, it's so out of place.
Dennis,
Right.
in the video, you're going to put that face the second Kevin says that face, right?
I'm pretty sure every photo I find of Cal is going to have that face anyway.
Right. And you got to change that meme from dat ass to dat face.
Oh, man.
I mean, I'm harping on him hardcore because that's fun. But, I mean, he's good, but that's what I mean. He's not a future for any program. I think even for LCR, who have openly stated that what they want is to mentor young riders to bridge the gap to advance their career. I mean, they've said that on multiple occasions. You know, which is why they wanted Brattle and blah, 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 blah. They want Miller as their guy. You know, their plan for the next 3 years is to mentor Miller.
Well, they want to
have two bikes.
They want to be the Tech 3 for Honda, right? Because Honda is...
Right, yeah, they openly... And they are that at this point.
It's true. I mean, they need that other factory bike.
Right.
But... I still think it's retarded that Honda does not run two factory bikes in the same team like Tech 3. Like, it puts the riders at a disadvantage. It means that they can't do the same development on the satellite bike, and it doesn't prepare the riders as much for the factory bike. Like, it's silly.
Plus, their new sponsor's name doesn't even have any vowels in it. What's up with that?
Really?
Yeah, dude.
WM. So on that note, Rob, I mean, because right now the Gracina gave up the other factory spec RC213, and that's now going to be the Mark VDS bike for Reading. Is there any at all benefit to Honda splitting their two other factory bikes between two different teams?
There's zero benefit between splitting it between two teams. I mean, maybe it's easier for the teams to pay for it, right? Because LCR is able to get the open bike instead, and it costs them less money. But there is no benefit to the riders. You need a teammate. You need to be able to bounce the technical side of things off of the other guy. The team needs the experience of having two riders on the same bike running this, similar electronic setups, similar like chassis setups, similar everything.
And remember, those two satellite bikes are totally different setups. Some have, Brattle this last year had the factory electronics and engine, but then the other satellite Honda was running the software package for satellite and then different chassis or different brake components and suspension components. So they can't even share data in between teams. Like if data engineers they get assigned can change because they're completely different data. So it's not like a data engineer that's assigned had been assigned to Grassini could even be like, okay, data engineer from LCR is saying this and this map, let's check it out. I mean, I also think it's one of the reasons why you don't see the back in the 990 era, the satellite Hondas were race winners, regular podiums. I mean, freaking Tony Elias won a race on one. Now they're kind of, back to that whole placeholder thing. They're just kind of there on the grid.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Honda cares the least about their satellite bikes for all the factories. It's ridiculous because if they wanted to use the satellite bikes to funnel people through, they would pit two satellite riders against each other, make sure they were on the same equipment as the factory bike, and they'd pick the best one. But they're not even doing that. I mean, yeah, they can't share setup. Like it's so useless for the factory. I don't know why they do it. Maybe they care about Showa more than they care about the factory or the satellite riders actually doing anything for them. Maybe unlike Yamaha, going to a satellite Honda is really just like a place to kind of end your GP career.
Right, because there's no one right now that's it was Simoncelli that was supposed to be getting factory stuff, and that was kind of a future for riding a satellite Honda as a future guy. Everyone pretty much knew it too.
And he was
but nowadays
the closest factory bike that you could get on a satellite Honda back then.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, but nowadays, like, who knows what Mark VDS is running next year? I'm assuming they'll be on Olin's because there's no way in hell they want to run the show stuff because that worked well for
No,
us.
I think they said they are on Olin's. They actually said that's what they were doing.
That's good.
Yeah, they're doing Olin's and Brembo.
Right. And cool paint schemes. I got to give them that.
You're right. So I said I might not be excited about a factory one, but the satellite ones definitely turn out interesting. That could be good. Hopefully it's not the exact same thing as the Moto2 bike.
I actually like that, the one with the little Jaguar or whatever it is on the side.
Yeah, but it just...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's going to be, if they have a similar design to their Moto2 bike, shit's going to be fucking rad, dude, because I'm seriously disappointed in the Yamaha.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Yamaha has been... It's been the same for too goddamn long, but everyone and the mother on the internet is hoping for the Abarth paint scheme at Phillip Island. That's what they want, the white one that I showed you guys.
Yeah, when Rossi ran that in 2005, that was really cool too. The white and red, international colors.
I think it was, the Abarth one was 2007 in Phillip Island, I think. It might have been.
The one I'm thinking of that someone posted recently it was like based around that the all white with red trim, highlights. But who knows? What the fuck going on?
Can they just run Yamaha white and red again? Can we just get over the blue and like white and black? Because every motorcycle on the planet has those three colors in it.
Not every motorcycle on the planet has two different sponsors with the same logo.
All right, let us bring it back to Crutchlow real quick.
Okay, I got one real fast. Cal Crutchlow is the Colin Edwards of MotoGP without the personality.
Actually, yeah, I thought the same because with Colin Edwards' career kind of on a downturn, and he wasn't really as prominent as he could be being on the the CRT bike. Apart from the passport, they needed the personality that was that kind of could be abrasive, could be charming sometimes, but most of the time it's kind of stir shit up. Like Edwards
it does
did.
bring up an interesting
Totally
point.
agree with that one.
It does bring up an interesting point that when Colin Edwards openly says, "My bike is a piece of shit," people think it's funny. But when Cal Crutchlow complains, it's like, stop fucking complaining, you limey bastard. I guess I got to give Cal credit there.
That's a very astute observation, and I have no counter for that or any defense for Edwards.
I have a counter for it. America.
America. Fuck yeah.
All right. Well,
sorry.
What I was gonna say is, Redding, the new Brit, the newest Brit anyway. He at least went through the GP ranks, having done 125 and then Moto2. Are we looking at him as far as Brit GP riders are concerned as a better talent than Cal, or on par, or what are we thinking?
More potential upside.
Yeah, but a better talent, probably not.
I'm not sold.
Really?
I'm not sold. I'm not buying it yet.
No better than Brattle. Like, probably the same thing. Probably 3 years. Maybe he's got a better manager. Maybe he'll be like, oh, well, I rode the open bike, so I should stay in longer because I haven't shown my form yet. But I don't expect anything good. Like,
I think actually Redding's got speaking of timing, his timing's kind of fucked. He rides this crappy open bike that's not nearly as good as they claim. He gets 1 year on Bridgestones and then they switch again. What if the Michelins just don't gel well with the Honda like in 2005, right? Then he's fucked, and it looks like, oh man, you've been in for 3 years. But if he could totally be circumstance, he was stuck in purgatory 1 year, and then the third year, it's almost like luck of the draw. And Honda's going to be putting most of the development in making sure that Marquez and co have the most development with those new Michelins. He might be left out again, and it could be completely circumstance.
And he'll be upstaged by Miller. Like, there's no way. Like he's gonna get his 3 and out, right? It'll be the 3 worst possible years on a Honda, and then they're gonna be like, well, Miller did like the same exact thing that you did, or a little bit better, so we'll take him instead.
Right. Plus, he's got a mullet, and I mean.
I mean, like, it's funny though because. Miller's practically.
Miller legitimately has a curly mullet. Like, he's 2 steps away from having Jerry juice in his hair. I can't say no to that. I can't root against the guy with a Jerry curl mullet in 2014 or 15, whatever year it is.
Oh man, you actually said Jared Curl. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's how I roll, dude.
Yep. Should we talk about Miller? I mean, I'm not sold, but I feel like everyone else is.
I'm sold because he rode the end of the season like he didn't even give a quarter of a fuck, and it was rad. He was just straight trolling guys on the track. It was awesome. I couldn't stand Miller for a minute. He was whiny and felt like he came off as entitled and all that. And then all of a sudden he realized he might not actually win the title. He wasn't going to give it to him. And all of a sudden he started riding like a jackass, and it was awesome because,
So if
fuck bitches win races make money.
If he wouldn't have actually rode like the way that he should have, you would have just had the same opinion of him as you do of Cal Crutchlow.
No, because mullet. I'd have liked it more still. So, better mullet.
Right. Rob, why are you not sold yet on Miller?
Everyone's touting him as like the Marquez killer, right? And I'm pretty confident that he doesn't have it. Like supposedly he has Nakamoto-san backing, which he must, right? Because they signed him out of Moto3, but he didn't win the ship. Right, his results are kind of, they're one step behind what Marquez did in the lowest class, right? Like Marquez was on the KTM and did kind of like the same thing. He had like a barely 15th in the ship and then like kind of a middle of the fact. Like I think Marquez got 6th or something on his second year on the KTM. And Miller did about the same thing, right? Like he had reasonably crappy equipment the first year. The second year he was on the FTR Honda, which we knew was super underpowered. But all of those results were one step behind Marquez, and Marquez came out on top in the third year, like handily, right? Miller got beat by his little brother.
I don't think Jack Miller is a Marquez beater at all. I mean, his style is cool and he charges hard. We'll see how he does that with 270 horsepower underneath him. But
I mean, he's a big kid. I don't think he'll have any trouble riding the bike. But to be able to push that step further and to be able to do development well and to be able to be the rider that the factory wants you to be, I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, we talked about this either on one of the other 2 episodes of if there's a rider in GP now that can beat Marquez, and we all said no, and we said that if anyone, it's Maverick, right?
I still think that Jack Miller is not as good as Maverick.
No, I think that there's no way.
Maverick's off of that Suzuki after a couple of years. He's going to go somewhere, and he's going to tear it up. And he's going to make guys like Miller and Redding, who thought they were the anointed ones, really know what it's like to throw a hissy fit, get the bike you want, and then win the title.
Yeah, I mean, Miller might be better than Redding, but I don't know yet. Like, I'm still putting them in that gray area of like, yeah, you could be about as lackluster as Brattle, which is a terrible insult.
Right. And have almost as bad a hair as Bradley.
Oh man, yeah. What if the mullet was like completely bald on top and then it was just mullet in the back?
Like, then I would buy a Jack Miller shirt tomorrow.
Awesome.
Let's bring this back to the scapegoat, Crutchlow. Does he have a 2-year contract or a 1-year contract with LCR Honda? I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure it's a 1 year.
Yeah, maybe.
So what kind of what do we call it? All right, what are we looking at as far as post LCR Honda, last year Bridgestones, 2016, everything new again? Where is he going to be? Where are we forecasting here?
I think he's going to be at Forward Yamaha.
Forward Yamaha. You mean on the Michelins, right? So in 2016.
Oh yeah, I think after he gets booted from Honda, that he'll be on like the pseudo, CRT open style bike, the like Frankenstein bike. And then everyone will talk about, oh, he used to ride that same kind of bike, and he got a bunch of podiums on it, and blah 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 blah. It's gonna be so sweet, and then it's not.
Well, it'll be exactly the same bike, right?
Right.
because forward's like 3 years behind, so it'll be the
I
exact.
know, which is totally sweet.
um, yeah, I don't know if he'll follow Brattle. I feel like he's burned enough bridges that I think he'll just kind of trickle down even further. I mean, but where the hell would he go, right? Because he can't go to Avintia because they're running Ducatis now. And they'll have to be on new bikes, right? Because they won't be. Even forward Yamaha, is Yamaha going to give forward the 2013 chassis or the 2014 chassis to run on Michelin's? Like, that's just kind of like a slap in the face. It's like, here, like, we know this won't work with those tires, but you get it anyway.
Right, that's a good point. I don't even know. That's actually an interesting point about what Forward's going to do next year. Are they going to get given an all-new chassis, or are they just going to be stuck on a chassis running tires it's not made for?
Yeah, I mean, they still had planned on Calix doing development for the prototype chassis for the original one, the one that was supposedly that Yamaha helped them develop, but they kind of abandoned that because obviously buying one directly from Yamaha is cheaper, right? And I don't blame them. Like, buy the one that like worked back in the day. But
it also wasn't really a Calix. It was like a guy who worked for FTR, but not really FTR. It was weird. Like that whole bike, that whole thing they were making was strange. You couldn't even really get a straight answer out of who designed that chassis that Colin rode a couple times.
No, you're right. It was the dude that worked at Calix that left there and essentially started designing chassis, like, consulting, like just on his own. Which probably a good position for the single guy to be in, but who knows if they were able to produce anything that worked well. Like, Colin liked the chassis, and Aleix said that it worked really well in slow corners, but in the faster corners, it wasn't as good as the M1 chassis. So,
right.
And Aleix has never ridden in the factory M1, so who knows?
Right. But, yeah, Aleix knows one thing: how to go too fast on a bike that's not that fast.
Yeah, exactly, and do it well. He does it well. Well, yeah. So maybe Cal will pick the open bike though, right? Maybe he'll just swap with Miller because guaranteed Honda is going to sell the open teams a new chassis, right? Because the bike that they got last year was good for 2 years, right? So it's good for last year and this year, and it was like the first year it was the chassis and all the parts and the crappy engine, and then the second year they were getting upgrades mostly to the engine, which is now. So the contract's over. So maybe next year they'll get a completely new bike and it'll be made for the Michelins. Whereas, I mean, that sounds like a sure thing. Whereas the not the Pramac bike, the Avintia open bike could be like the GP 14.2, which would be terrible on Michelins. Like, there's no way that thing will work well. And then an old Tech 3 bike or an old, a 2014 factory bike on Michelins, that could be crappy. So maybe the open bike will be the better ride.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad point. He just, that because the sponsors clearly want him. Their new British sponsors, and they'll give him a little extra cash to stick around, ride the open bike because it's probably the best available thing. Unless he just goes back to World Superbike.
That'd actually be funny if he just went back to Superbike.
Right.
Who would he?
And then lost to Tommy Sykes.
We're just gonna have to wait and see what happens after 2015. But it is 2015 now. We're in the current season, and in the interest of wrapping up the Crutchlow episode, I have a final question for the two of you. This season, the three remaining Brits are Crutchlow on the LCR Honda, Redding on the Mark VDS Honda, and of course Bradley Smith on the Yamaha M1 with Tech 3. So, which, in your opinion, will be the top finishing British rider in 2015?
Oh, I'm putting Redding at the bottom.
Oh shit! I'm completely opposite from Rob.
No,
I'm putting Redding at the top, son. Straight at the top.
Okay, wait. First of all, the one that's putting on top, Kevin, I want to know why, because it's a factory spec or close to factory spec Honda RC213V on Brembo on Öhlins, but we're talking about the Mark Vidias squad, who is only now stepping up to the GP class. And you think that Redding is going to be the top finishing Brit?
Drags elbow, son. Drags elbow. Drug elbow before it was cool, bro. Now, I think that Redding is good. Redding has more to prove, and he was pissed off all last year. He was like talking shit about beating Nicky for 10th and shit, right? Like Redding's got a chip on his shoulder, and he is going to charge harder than I think Cal is. I think, obviously Smith has about as many chances of getting any more podiums as he does regrowing his forehead. But I think Cal's right in the middle because Cal is going to have expectations of this and that. He's not going to like things. He might complain a little bit. I think Redding is going to come out like a bat out of hell, dude. Straight up. I believe in Redding more than I believe in Cal this season. Redding will probably crash more, and so Cal might have more points, but for impressive finishes that you remember, it's going to be Redding.
And your counter, Rob?
But you can't say Cal's going to have more points and then put Redding on the top. Because that wasn't. He
didn't say who was going to. Whatever. I could do whatever I want.
I said top finishing Brit. Top finishing Brit.
I said maybe. I'm sticking with Redding. More points, better finishes, cooler tattoos.
Does that kid have tattoos?
Dude, Redding is tatted up, bro.
I'm sorry, I missed his shirtless pics.
Not me. I catch every one.
So what is your? Go ahead.
I'm putting Redding on the bottom because GP is a team sport, and it is that 2 days of training to work on the bike before Sepang 1 does not make up for all the data that your team can get from an entire year of running in the championship. Like literally, Redding's team doesn't even have the data from him running the open bike. Right, Redding is gonna know he'll know when things are wrong, but the team is gonna get stuff wrong. Right? They're gonna waste so much time every weekend that there is no way in hell that he's gonna do as good as he could do, because GP is a team sport.
If GP was a team sport, Rossi wouldn't have done so good at Ducati. Wait, what?
As far as the other two, Bradley or Cal, God, that one is tough. I think the M1's the better bike, but I think Cal's the better rider. But
wasn't Smith so cute on that podium? He was like legitimately so happy.
Yeah, God, if fucking Paul wouldn't have crashed, I wouldn't have lost $20. God damn it.
It's like you know that you can't pick Bradley Smith, but it sounds like you're paying to say Crutchlow.
I can't pick Bradley Smith because he's gonna choke. Because he doesn't have the contract for the following year. He has no job security at all, and he's like one of the weakest guys in the paddock. I can't pick him. I just can't do it because if you don't think, or if you're not entirely focused on going fast, there's no way you're gonna go fast. So I gotta say Cal. This is terrible.
Wow.
That's terrible.
Right. I hate you, Rob.
I guess that's a nice way to bookend this episode. In some ways, somebody still voted for Crutchlow after all.
God damn it. Whatever. Kevin said he was going to argue with me the whole time anyway, so.
No, I legitimately think Redding's going to have a better year than Cal. Even all that stuff Rob said makes total sense and like would convince any rational person. I still think Redding's going to do better.
I will agree with you that there's a lot that happens in motorcycle racing that is not rational at all.
Right.
Every year. We'll see.
I don't think we have to wait very long to find out anyway, since it's right around the corner. So with that said, definitely we're going to be wrapping up this episode of the third episode of the podcast.
Wait, hold on. What's right around the corner? What's right around the corner? Can we say it? Can we finally say what's around the corner? Bikes on track. Oh God.
Whoa.
It's been so long.
It came a little.
It's been so long. Oh.
And Rob jizzed in his pants.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to put up that animated GIF of the Ageism on the screen.
Do it.
Right,
I don't
exactly.
care what it is. Just do it.
Like right when Rob says that, just like with his voice trailing off, like it's perfect. It's perfect.
It's gonna be good.
All right, well on that
I'm
note,
ready
let's wrap it up. Go ahead.
I'm just ready to see how crappy the Aprilia is. That's what I'm most excited about. It's like it's gonna be the Buell of MotoGP.
Oh my, that was
Wait, so when is
that was so bad.
the first February test?
the fourth or the third?
So it's next week.
Yeah.
It's the worst day of Melandri's life.
Then I guess you all know what the topic's going to be for next episode.
They're gonna blow the pneumatic engine like the whole weekend. It's gonna be hilarious.
It's gonna be like Suzuki.
But Biaggi's been testing it, so it might not be that. No, it'll be bad.
Well, as far as whoever is listening, there you have it. Next week is going to be the first preseason test of 2015, and we can't wait to obviously view that and nitpick it at the next episode. So until then, see ya.
Let's go.
Later.